Hi, Shang. Thank you for joining us with Oasis Capital's 2023 Global Economic Opportunities and Challenges Conference. For our viewing audience, could you please provide us with a brief overview of Simplify ETFs and your role at Simplify?
Sure. Hey, Glendon, thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. Maybe I'll start with just a quick background on myself. So my name is Shang Chou. I'm a Senior Vice President and ETF Strategist with Simplify Asset Management. Prior to Simplify, I worked at firms like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and PIMCO in the investment management division. And I graduated from MIT for my undergrad and earned an MBA from UCLA Anderson. So Simplify is a relatively new ETF issuer here in the United States. We launched our first product in September 2020. There's a very interesting story behind it, and maybe I'll kind of take a step back and go back to 2019 when there were a couple major regulatory shifts here in the United States. So first, SEC Rule 6C-11 was passed in 2019, and then the following year, the SEC adopted Rule 18F-4. So very, very, very high level generalizing, the first Rule 6C-11 effectively streamlined the ability of ETFs to become products for retail investors and investors all over to invest in. And then 18F-4 created a framework where you could use leverage and derivatives within the ETF wrapper. And so within Simplify, our two co-founders are Paul Kim, who's our co-founder and CEO, and David Burns, who's our co-founder and chief investment officer. Paul had been instrumental in building out PIMCO's ETF platform. This was, nearly a decade ago. And after PIMCO, he went and joined Principal, where he built out their ETF platform. Dave has a background in, he has a PhD in physics from MIT and authored a textbook on asset allocation for the wealth management industry. So following the passage of these two SEC regulatory rules, Paul and Dave really saw the opportunity to take what investors were doing in institutional asset management, so firms like PIMCO, as well as in the hedge fund space, and really take those very sophisticated strategies that use things like derivatives and leverage and bring them into the world, within an ETF wrapper, which is, as we all know, low cost, it's liquid, it's transparent, and it's very easily implemented and tradable. So that was really the genesis of Simplify. Today, fast forward almost 2.5 years later, we have 25 products on our platform, and this spans equities, fixed income, liquid alternatives, as well as hedging solutions. All our ETFs, we manage around $1.5 billion in AUM, and we work very closely with a number of registered investment advisors, wirehouses, brokerages, as well as institutional allocators. And our end users are investors of all types and sizes. So I'll pause there and happy to share more as well if helpful, Glendon.
Sure. Shang, that was a great overview of Simplify. Just something I personally would want to know is how Simplify would be different from other ETF issuers.
That's a great question. And so, the ETF industry is very competitive and it's very large. Multiple players, some of whom are, as we all know, these global multi-asset investment firms that do anything and everything from separately managed accounts to mutual funds to ETFs. One differentiator I'll just mention right off the bat is we focus right now currently only on ETFs, and that's our bread and butter. The other thing I'll mention is, traditionally I think of the ETF industry as kind of two generalized buckets. And so, I'm being very, colloquial here, but, you can think of generally one bucket as like the Walmarts of the world, right? They offer very simple, low cost, widely accessible products. And the others are more like Starbucks where, they offer something that's very niche and it's a little bit more expensive and it's very focused. I really see what we do here at Simplify as sort of a third dimension. We're taking, as I mentioned earlier, tools that are traditionally accessible only to institutional investors or very, very sophisticated investors, democratizing them within an ETF wrapper. And ultimately, our goal is to create products that can serve as, foundational building blocks for anyone's portfolio. So, as I mentioned, some of these so-called Starbucks ETF shops, they make things like that maybe very thematic in nature or very tactical, and they're hoping to capture something that currently is, the market feels very hot about, and maybe they can capture some flows that way. And this could be a small portion to one's portfolio, maybe augment the equity portion a little bit by overweighting one theme or one sector. We're different at Simplify in that we're trying to build, building blocks within an asset allocation framework that can serve as long-term buy and hold solutions to investors of all shapes and sizes.